My name is Malcolm Russell-Einhorn. I think Sebastian has introduced me. I'll just say that I'm here at the Elliott School as a research professor. I've worked in Central Asia and I'm an affiliate of the Central Asia program. And I'm pleased to chair this panel, which I think is exceedingly multidisciplinary when you consider that this whole topic today is exceedingly multidisciplinary. So I like the way not only that these speakers will fit together, but also the fact that this very much builds on some of the earlier sessions today in terms of, many of the variables that we've been talking about, be it gender inclusion, SME and competition policy, Uzbekistan's connectivity to the global economy, et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, but I will say that in the interest of time, I think we will group the questions at the end, especially given that I have some good expectations that there will be nice interconnectivity, so to speak, between these speakers. So let me introduce our first speaker. This is Nodira Saidkarimova. She's a migration governance expert with over 20 years of experience in Central Asia. She specializes in safe labor migration, counter-trafficking, and reintegration systems. And she currently serves as country director for Winrock International in Uzbekistan and provides consultancy services, research consultancy services within the entire Central Asia region for both international development projects and work on safe migration issues. Welcome.
Thank you very much. How many minutes do I have?
Oh, good point. We're basically saying 12 to 14, or 12 to 15.
14 onwards. I
So,
need to squeeze a bit. Okay.
The graphics, I think, are great and speak for themselves.
Yes, yes, I have a lot of graphics, but I will not stop on each of it. So I would like to thank the organizers of this important event, Central Asian program, and particularly Dr. Sebastian Perros and the entire team for bringing us together for this important conversation, important and timely conversation and event. I would also like to thank my fellow panelists for their excellent presentations that laid the ground of the topic that I'm going to speak about. As Uzbekistan is entering a decisive phase in its development trajectory, rapid population growth creates the potential for a demographic dividend. But the dividend depends on whether the economy can productively absorb this workforce. In addition to domestic job creation, labor migration has become a structural feature of our economy. Let me start with historical observation. Before 2016, under President Karimov, labor migration was largely ignored. I remember the time when the president spoke out and called labor migrants as lazy people. There was no systematic governance, very limited legal framework, poor protection systems, and no integration support. With the change of the government and presidency of Mirziyoyev, we have witnessed fundamental transformations. Uzbekistan has built a comprehensive migration governance system across 3 pillars. First one, building comprehensive legislation framework for protection of labor migrants. Second one, formalizing outbound migration through organized labor recruitment schemes, bilateral agreements, and pre-departure support. The third one, building reintegration mechanisms to capture the economic value of returning migrants. So in my presentation, I'm going to speak about these 3 pillars, and I would like to start with some demographic data. You can see that Uzbek population is growing very rapidly, while the level of economic activity of population is not at the pace the same with the number of employed populations. The gap between these 2 trend lines represent a structural driver of migration. Over time, the gap accumulates and shapes labor mobility pattern. Uzbekistan is entering a prolonged phase of demographic expansion. Prior presenters mentioned that several times as well. By 2030, the population is expected to exceed 40 million people. By 2050, it is projected to reach 52 million. From economic perspective, population growth can present both opportunities but also structural requirements. The opportunities lies in the expansion of domestic market and labor force. The requirement is that employment growth and productivity improvements keep pace with labor supply. Empirical evidence from other middle-income countries suggests that large working-age cohorts can accelerate economic growth, provided that the human capital investment and labor market absorption proceeds in parallel. Uzbekistan has adopted its strategy of development by 2030. We can see there are several indicators relevant to employment, in particular expected unemployment rate target, 4% industrial jobs to be created at 1.8 million, IT sector employment, 300,000 young people are expected to be engaged into sector. Also, annual job creation target is 1 million citizens provided permanent work. However, given the annual inflow of 500,000 to 700,000 new labor market entrants, domestic job creation alone may not fully absorb the growing workforce. That's why migration functions as a complementary adjustment mechanism. While domestic job creation remains a priority, international labor mobility offers a complementary pathway to absorb demographic pressure. Among the push factors that push Uzbek citizens to migration, we can mention the limited availability of quality jobs, wage differences with destination countries, underemployment and informality, in line with the recent World Bank research on 40% up to 30% of populations are in informal sector of economy. Skills mismatch between education and labor demand, cultural constraints, including social pressure on certain groups, including women, especially divorced women, single women feel social pressure and as a result involved into migration. Pull factors include high wages, established migration networks, language proximity to especially Russian language, strong demand for low and semi-skilled labor in destination countries. Migration is a rational household's response to these structural conditions. Speaking about the recent trends, we are observing a clear shift toward geographical diversification of migration flows. Russia becoming less attractive due to geopolitical factors, tighter migration controls, while alternative corridors to Turkey, South Korea, Gulf states, European Union and UK are expanding rapidly. As a result, migration is becoming more distributed and less concentrated in a single destination. Second, we can observe structural transition toward more skilled and regulated migration, and the third is a growing institutionalization of migration alongside changing migrant preferences. The government is actively promoting organized recruitment and formal agreements, while migrants are prioritizing higher wages, better working conditions, and stronger social protections. At the same time, migration risks are becoming more complex, transnational, and harder to regulate. First, tightening migration policies and rising anti-migrant sentiment are pushing migrants toward more irregular and risky pathways. Second, exposure to transnational crime is increasing, including human trafficking, recruitment fraud, and emerging risks like cyber scam operations in Southeast Asia, Southern Asia that also target US citizens. Third, there are growing security and protection concerns, including reports of recruitment into conflict-related activities and heightened risk of exploitation and radicalization. As I already mentioned, the government is undertaking significant efforts to build and improve system for safe and orderly migration. That includes international commitments on labor migration, but also national legal and institutional framework on labor migration. Legal framework enables overseas employment through public and also private channels, and recent 2 years we see a growing partnership with the private sector, and most of the activities on organized recruitment schemes are being shifted from government to private recruitment agencies, including trainings, skills development trainings, and pre-departure orientation activities. Establishment of institutional mechanisms for migrant protection, including establishment of the Agency on Migration and the Cabinet of Ministers, Fund for Protection and Support of Migrants Abroad, introduction of pre-departure trainings, language training, safe transport system, expansion of overseas representation, support services, and many more. Through agreements with government and private recruiters, building on the model of Philippines, Uzbekistan is facilitating organized recruitment of labor migrants. You can see the intergovernmental and interagency agreements listed here. And on the right table, you can see the trends in sending in organized way labor migrants. And it's interesting that it's still, Russia remains the major destination point, including through organized recruitment scheme, despite many of efforts of the government to diversify countries of destination. Because of many constraints, including visa limitations to European states, and also mismatch in certification of skills. For example, the nurse in Germany has a lot of requirements to her skills certification, which are very different from the certifications obtained by nurses in Uzbekistan. This kind of difficulties cause still limited opportunities for organized recruitment to other countries. Nevertheless, we see growing number of Uzbek labor migrants going to United Kingdom for the seasonal agricultural works, which doesn't request a lot of skills. And for the first time in the history, Uzbekistan became the first rank of sending migrants to UK, overcoming the Ukraine, which historically has been the major provider of labor resources to UK for seasonal agricultural works. So this slide shifts the focus to return migration, a necessary component of Pillar 3. For 2025, in the first 8 months only, an estimated 700,000 returnees were recorded. These figures indicate that return flows are quantitatively significant and deserve systematic policy attention. During migration, Uzbek citizens work primarily in construction, trade, agriculture services, acquiring technical skills, language competencies, and work experience. Upon return, the structural distribution shifts. However, skills acquired abroad are rarely formally certified. This creates a mismatch between migrant capabilities and domestic labor market recognition, representing untapped human capital. Return migration is driven by heterogeneous factors. The major reasons are achieving of economic goals of migrations like buying home or car, weddings, external factors, economic uncertainty, political instability, deportations, and internal factors like difficult working and living conditions, exploitation, job loss. I would like to share the most recent results of the research that I have conducted for the International Center on Migration Policy Development. We are still finalizing this report. It should be available soon this year and launched. These are preliminary results that I would like to share with you. So we have analyzed the key needs of returning migrants and did a mapping of available state services to meet these needs, and also identified gaps and developed some recommendations to address these gaps, and that I would like to share. So we united the needs into 8 groups, but the most urgent needs are these 3 ones. First one is employment. Upon return, you can see some figures from the UNDP survey of returning migrants. Among the employed, only 55% have been able to get employed, 29 self-employed, and 15 became really business entrepreneurs, migrant entrepreneurs. Limited certification of skills mismatches, demand for retraining, reskilling. Another very big area of needs is preferential and subsidized loans for starting their own businesses, affordable housing, entrepreneurship training, and mentoring. The other problems and needs included psychosocial and well-being support, especially among female returning migrants. UNDP survey showed that 58% believe that society has a negative attitude towards migrant women. Now you can imagine how they feel after returning from migration. Only 14% have positive attitude. Healthcare problems are usually a result of difficult and severe working conditions on the north of Russia. At lesser extent, they have registration and civil status act problems, access visit to education and legal assistance and advice. These needs are at lesser extent. State support, we identified that there is a very comprehensive but still not systematized and not united services for migrants, and often migrants are not aware about the availability of services and where they can get these services. That was the major finding of our report. But you can still see a lot of services provided by the government, including job placement, referral for training and skill certification. And another interesting reform I would like to share is a voucher system introduced by the Ministry of Employment and Poverty Reduction. If in the past vulnerable populations could get skills development support only from these mono centers run by the ministry, now they can get skills development trainings at any private sector provider who have been licensed by the ministry, and the population, vulnerable groups of population can get vouchers to get referred to these private sector providers. Finance and entrepreneurship, preferential loans, for example. However, these loans are very time limited, so when the government adopted such a resolution, the loans have been available, but after a short time there were no resources for such loans. So this kind of measures, some of them were very short term. Psychosocial support this system is being built under the new National Agency on Social Services. And healthcare support, not much problems have been detected in this area. No problems with documentation, legal assistance. For the psychosocial support, some respondents mentioned that there is still a big stigma among providers of social services. Again, this stigma against women returning from labor migration. So we thought such tools as ethical trainings can be provided and introduced. So what else can be improved? Strengthening national reintegration policies. So we suggest to finalize and adopt draft law on external labor migration, because there is no clear definition of persons returning from migration, as well as unified legal framework for reintegration services. We also suggest to consider developing national reintegration strategy with clear distribution of roles between the state bodies. Strengthening measures to promote employment of returning migrants, like expanding partnership with private sector, accelerating competency assessment centers, providing targeted retraining programs, improving access to finance, stabilize and nationalize preferential microcredit and grant mechanisms, as I mentioned, ensuring predictable and long-term financing. I'll not stop on each of it for the sake of time. Just 2 more minutes. Okay, this is the last slide. I'll just highlight the major recommendations. Scaling up psychosocial support and overcoming stigma, and as I mentioned, increased number of trained social workers and psychologists in rural and remote areas. For example, for the whole Fergana city with 300,000 citizens, there is only one psychologist who is, of course, cannot provide such service. Introduce mandatory trainings on ethics, confidentiality, non-blaming for Mahala staff, social workers and psychologists. Strengthen community-based advocacy campaign to reduce stigma of returnees, women migrants and survivors of trafficking. Strengthening support for women migrants returning from abroad and vulnerable groups. These recommendations come out of my own experience when, together with one of the NGOs in Fergana region, we suggested not only skills development services, but also childcare services. And that was of a high demand among the local population. They just came with their kids and took lessons and then started entrepreneurship activities that really showed the efficiency. Targeted programs for women at risk of stigma. Strengthening partnership with NGOs and community-based initiatives. Strengthening monitoring, evaluation, and quality assurance systems. I think this is it. Thank you.
Thank you for such a rich presentation with so many different policy areas for action, as well as interactions between them, which I think will be part of the theme today, is how to coordinate. Our next speaker is Murodjon Khalikov. He's a social policy specialist and economist chief specialist at the National Agency for Social Protection. He has extensive experience managing and implementing projects funded by the World Bank, the United Nations, and the Uzbek government, both in the fields of social protection and education. His main areas of focus include demographic trends, social policy, and adaptive, shock-responsive social protection agendas.
Thank you very much, Malcolm, for the introduction. Thank you very much for everyone coming and listening to our findings in our research. My name is Murodjon. I am a Chief Specialist of National Agency for Social Protection under the President of Uzbekistan. And my work is mostly macroeconomic, data-heavy work, but for the presentation, for the time's sake, I condensed it and then tried to make it simple for everyone to understand and then follow up. In 2023, we renewed our constitution. Everyone knows that Uzbekistan has a new version of constitution, and we added one more adjective to the Uzbekistan, which is the word called welfare. We are now considered a welfare state, and consequently, after 2 months, National Agency for Social Protection has been established, which unified under one umbrella all the social protection field, policy making, implementation, and monitoring. So, for the last 3 years, more or less, social protection system is balanced and kind of harmonized. Services are in place. have a huge pool of cadres working over the caregivers, social workers, and institutions. But then, now everything is more or less settled, the management and the government is looking ahead. So what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, or even 30 years? So let's find out. That's why it was around a lot of talks in our meetings, so I started my own research on demographic dividend for Uzbekistan, and here are my findings. For starters, I would like to show you this visualization, so how great and at the same time alarming is population growth for Uzbekistan. Only in 2024, our population grew, the annual birth rate was 926,000, which is even more than 12 Eastern European countries combined. And with a really small mortality rate around 170,000-80,000 people deaths in Uzbekistan every year. So we are adding up every year, annually, 700 and almost 50,000 people to the population. And then, as we have seen from the other presentations, we are every year adding up more than 100,000 people graduates from the university and other institutions to labor market, which there is not enough jobs. So, every year we are adding up this amount of people. Will they be the skilled workforce which pushes the economy and the social society, or will they be constantly dependent on public support or government support? So that's the main issue. Population growth is not the issue. The issue is how to handle it. So, but this picture is you cannot convince with this picture the policymakers and government officials. So let's move into the numbers and the projections. World Bank and UN and UNICEF, all international organizations, actually, when they see the demographic data, they study as a whole Central Asian region, and that's why some of my data is actually belongs to the Central Asian data. So from the first graph, you can see that by the projections, in absolute terms, Central Asian population will grow by 30 million more people up to 2050. And half of this growth belongs to Uzbekistan. That should already send an alarming signal to the government that we should be prepared for that, and we should make timely decisions on that. And even the UNICEF analysis also showed that by 2050, we will have 52 million people in Uzbekistan. This is a huge growth, actually. I was born in 1991. I am with the independence here. Since independence, our population has doubled, almost doubled, because it was 20 or 21 million, something like that, at the beginning of independence.
It's almost triple.
And yes, population is growing. Everyone may say that it's good. We have a good, more youth cohort workforce. We can use it. We will find jobs for them, maybe in Russia or in Kazakhstan or here. We will deal with it. But anyway, but if you look at this fertility rate, we have now fertility rate dropping actually in Central Asia because of urbanization, higher education of women, increased education on reproductive health, and other issues. So fertility rate is drastically going to drop in by 2050. So we will have lesser pool of youth cohort by that time. But at the meantime, in the middle, we will have a good economic dividend window, yes. But at that, by 2050, we will have a large amount of elderly people in Uzbekistan, not only in Uzbekistan, but in all of Central Asia. So how should we prepare for that? To visualize what we are going there, UNICEF has made a really good analysis. It's based on the government data and other international data and surveys. If you look at the blue part, this is the dependence ratio of children below 15. So now we have 2025, we have a good fertility rate so far. It's going to grow a little bit. Then by 2030, it starts, in 2035, it starts dropping because of the fertility rate drop. That gives good opportunity that we have a huge pool of working age, working able youth cohort is 15 to 64, and the less dependent children, which gives less economic burden for the government. Good, but at the same time, if you look at the gray area, that we will have by 2050, we will have a larger pool of aging population. And Uzbekistan should be ready to take care of this aging population, which is 65 plus. To explain the thematical issue here, the point here, the World Bank and another UN data classifies the demographic dividend window area to 4 different stages. Pre, early, late, and post-demographic dividend periods, let's say. Uzbekistan is in early dividend countries, among early dividend countries, with experiencing the rising share of young population and fertility rate below 4. And Turkmenistan, Tajikistan in the same picture. Kyrgyzstan is joining step by step. Kazakhstan is already in the post-dividend area. Actually, they have passed this, and they're actually doing really good work. So let me go back to this. The point of this work and then the recommendations I am preparing. I just want to fix your attention to this period of 15 years until here, 2040. So keep you in mind, and we will talk about it a lot. Yes, we have a population rising and then the fertility rate dropping, which is giving us a good demographic window that we can use. But can we use it totally? Can we effectively use it? There are lots of policy issues that can actually hinder all the processes that we can effectively use demographic dividend, and we will go one by them. Actually, some of them actually mentioned by our previous colleagues in their presentations. That's why I'm not going to stop every one of them in detail. Labor market absorption issues, as our colleagues discussed, we have unemployment rate of 5.8% currently in Uzbekistan, but youth unemployment is 11.2. This is high. And need rates. Need is not the use in not in education, employment, or training. This is in Uzbekistan we call them uyuşmayan yoshlar. It's kind of a considered use on the streets, if you put it like a bad example. Yeah. Thank you. We see the unemployment rate because the need rate is high, more than 58% for the youth overall, and female need rate is more than 70%, which is alarming. We have lots of women in Uzbekistan who are not in either education, employment, or training. They are either at home, caring their children, or elderly, or just doing some seasonal work every summer and do nothing in the winter. That's it. My words may sound a little bit harsh when I'm describing it, because I am inside all the problems, all the work in the ministries and in the agencies. I am seeing them when I go to field, when we go to field trips. It's actually sad in some points when you observe that. Labor continuity. Uzbekistan is a really traditional, family-oriented country with a lot of conservative ideas and beliefs, especially in the rural areas. Women, after giving birth, returning to work is really hard, and it takes lots of time and is mostly delayed. And this is one of the bigger issues in Uzbekistan. Also, there is a so-called dead weight loss of immigration. This is actually, this phrase is developed by the previous CAP, Central Asian Program researchers, which I really like. Dead weight loss of immigration is, it's good to have labor migration and getting remittances, like 1.4 billion even, it's a huge number, but these remittances are not constant, and they are interrupted over the year, over the period. And labor migrants who are going to work, if they are high skilled, this is a loss for the country, it's a brain drain. If it's a medium medium skilled workers, the remittances are low. If it's low skilled workers, it's really like nothing useful for the country, because whatever they earn, they come and they play wedding and they go back again. That's it. But this is more complicated than which I'm explaining, but it gives you the whole idea that labor migrant remittances shouldn't be the base policy for, let's say, absorbing use to the migration, if for work labor market. Here comes the social protection part, which is I mostly focus on in my work. So our population is growing, fertility rate is dropping, we have a good demographic early window, but in 15 years we will have a huge number of elderly people. Sorry, I jumped to the next slide. In Uzbekistan, according to the UN statistics, average unpaid hours per week spent on childcare by women in Uzbekistan is almost 47 hours per week for every woman. And this number is close to 60 among women aged 19 and 30, which is a really important period that you do career development, early entry, and solidify your professional experience in the workplace. And this number should be alarming actually for the government that should address this. Long-term care sustainability. It was a slide I was jumping, I'm sorry. Now we have, let's say, comparatively lesser pool of elderly people in Uzbekistan. It's 5.3%, and the dependency ratio is 9.7%. For your information, if it's 7, the proportion of people aged 65 is 7, that country is considered aging population. If it's 14, it's aged population already. Uzbekistan is going to hit that aging population threshold by 2035, according to all projections, because life is improving, healthcare is improving, life expectancy in Uzbekistan is increasing, so we are going to go there anyway. And by 2050, the dependency ratio is going to be 16.5%. This is huge. As I mentioned before, I condensed more the recommendations and the policy implications for one page, and then mostly it's time-bound and thematical bound. Way forward for Uzbekistan is, firstly, establishing a good mechanism, good strategy for absorbing the rapidly growing labor cohort of youth people in Uzbekistan, like my colleagues mentioned before, and then fiscal capacity. Since we have large cohort of elderly people are coming by 2050, government should question itself: can pension system can hold that wave actually? Is it enough, or there should be any other mechanisms to support it, or extra policies? So fiscal capacity should be intensified, and the third one is professionalizing the support around family care. In my work, we have tried a lot of reforms for care services in Uzbekistan, for children, for aged people, but majority of these reforms were pushed by the very population we want to try, we try to help, because they are really traditional. I want to take care of my father by myself. I'm sorry, I don't need your care worker, or I want to take care of my children by myself. I'm not going to give him to the nanny or kindergarten starting from 2 years old. I'm going to look after until 3 years old by myself. It's kind of traditional point of view. And also, as my colleagues discussed, there's a gender role also. Husbands do not let their wives to go to work early, because you should be taking care of children. And we cannot blame all of them, because the care service market is not improved yet. So many people, parents, husbands, and even the mothers themselves, as I said, they do not believe the care workers, nannies, because there was instances that kids got killed by nannies during the war. This kind of a lot of reasons there. So, government in this 2025, 2026, and 2040, this 15-year period we have established, and this is important for us. For that period, the government should enhance the labor activation, deepen the pension and insurance system, and build professional career workforce system. On the insurance system, I don't want to leave it out. There is a long-term care insurance, this so-called this kind of system in now developed countries and some developing countries like Germany, South Korea, Japan. The person starts from their income tax to contribute to some extent, starting from 1% to 6%, 3% to the fund. Then starting from 40 years old, you can start using it for rehabilitation services, for care services, if you are in need. So Uzbekistan has to look into it, replicate, or get the best lessons and start to implementing it. Because we have a large cohort of elderly people are coming, wave is coming. So if you do all that, by 2050, Uzbekistan emerges to the mid-century as a demographic resilient and country with a really good fiscal sustainability. Pension system, social protection system, and the social insurance system all combined. And the real answer to all of these issues and addresses, demographic dividend in Uzbekistan will be won or lost primarily through the labor absorption, strong care system, professionalized care system, and timely restructuring before the retrenchment because that becomes necessary. I just want to emphasize on that what is restructuring and what's retrenchment. This is in US history, this happened actually in 1994, if I'm mistaken. President Clinton just stopped a huge social benefits program because population is rising, it's not kind of effective. US did that, but US have a good work tax return system, so it's kind of everything was not so shocking. Last year when we went to Japan, when we learned their care system, they have a really good care system for elderly. They have good care insurance system, but they said, we have been developing this for 25 years. We started in 2000s. And we're saying, this is good. And they're saying, no, we would like to start actually in 90s, like 10, 15 years before when we have identified it. When we started, it was already visible that the old age cohort was coming. We wish we could start earlier. And France and UK also stumbled in the same problem. They have a huge cohort of elderly people and they are now struggling over the budget and then they're cutting some programs. So Uzbekistan now is in the early demographic dividend period. It's at the beginning. It's not visible yet, but I'm telling, look at this and we have to deal with that. Yeah, this is actually my focus, my work on this focus. Thank you very much. I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much for such a clear and thoughtful presentation and framing things in sequential terms. It's very striking to see it in graphical form. Okay. For our third speaker. So Solikha Makhmatova is a development economist and researcher specializing in socioeconomic modeling and long-term policy analysis. She holds a master's in international development and economics from the University of Denver, and she has authored research and policy reports across Asia and sub-Saharan Africa. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Those who are in the room and those who are watching us online. To my knowledge, it's the last presentation for today, finally. I'll try to be as straightforward as possible, but I don't promise anything. I'll be talking about the scenario-based evaluation of labor market pathways, so we're going to take another peek in the future. So let me just explain what that means briefly. Thanks to the amazing presentation of our panelists, we already know about the demographic dividend situation in the country, and we definitely need a labor market that is able to absorb those new workers effectively and formally, as you mentioned, the informality issue. And there are a lot of policy recommendations and government objectives on how to achieve that. And scenario evaluation is a good way to test those policies and see what some of these suggested modifications would look like in terms of measurable outcomes. I worked at the Research Institute on the development and data update of this modeling tool called International Futures, or IFS. It's a long-term integrated modeling platform with the estimate going up to 2100. That's what I use to produce today's analysis, and I can answer all the technical questions later. The most important thing to mention right now is that the model has the very interconnected variables, and adjusting one parameter would propagate the change through the entire system, and you would see effects through all aspects of the economy. And we will be looking at some of the informal economy indicators, technical vocational training indicators, gender empowerment, and human capital productivity. And there are several ways to intervene in the model in order to test the policy reforms. And when you adjust the parameter, the model kind of recomputes itself. And you can compare alternative scenarios to the base case scenario. And I have used only two types of these, multipliers and standard error targets. You can set a certain percentage or a value to the time frame you define yourself. I adjusted my scenarios based on Uzbekistan's official strategy 2030 official document, reform document that was updated earlier this year, and it just gave me specific numbers to work from, so that I didn't have to justify the numbers from scratch. But it's not a complete study; it's just example to show how the model works. I created two alternative scenarios with moderate reform package and high reform package, and I extended the time frame up to 2040 so that we could see the changes, because they usually take more time to actually get into some results. So for the strategy document has around 100 reform targets, and I cherry-picked only 5 of them. Those are very direct ones in the model and easy to change. So I reduced business regulation multiplier in order to lower informal GDP, increased female labor participation, and then set the standard error target for the gender empowerment, and then increased transition and quality rates for upper and secondary levels of education. And the high reform package has the same 5 levers, and then we'll have one more additional lever here, which is the total investment increase by 20%. So if you're ready for some data heavy graphs here, in terms of informal labor share, the formalization indicators under the baseline, as you can see, just sticks around 44% throughout the entire horizon, but under the moderate reform modification, it's down to around 35% by 2040, and the high reform package is even more ambitious. It gets into 27% by 2040, and which means that more than 1 in 4 workers who would otherwise be in the formal economy are brought back into the formality. Informal GDP kind of supports the same story. You can see that there's a red line that's Uzbekistan's own 22% target, and moderate reform gets there right around 2042 maybe, and high reform gets there even earlier. But the baseline doesn't get there until the end of 2015. Just a quick look at the GDP per capita, because we don't see much change in the modern reform package, but we can see that there is around 17% increase in the high reform scenario, because we increased investment in the high reform package, but the gap widening doesn't happen much up until 2040, which means that the investment modifications that we made actually take a longer time to get reflected in the data. On education, the moderate scenario brings 51% more students to the compared to the baseline, and high reform brings 93% more students. These are very large numbers, and they imitate what would the aggressive transition push would look like. And whether the implementation would actually produce these high numbers is another question. At least this is what the model gives us with the current modifications that I made for these two scenarios. And so these would be the workers who will enter the formal labor market in the 2040. That's why we, the formalization results that we looked at earlier keep improving even after the reform window closes up. Here we can see the obvious improvement in the gender empowerment index, because we kind of intervened to it directly. I won't stop on that much. We can come back to it later if there are any questions. Here's some interesting finding. Although we have the strong educational increase for the high reform package, it actually shows lower human capital productivity than baseline and the moderate package scenario. What's happening here is that the multiply 20% increase in the investment pushes the growth model toward physical capital accumulation, and that kind of crowds out the human capital component of it. On the investment picture itself, the high reform scenario has around 9 percentage point gap, which explains both GDP premium and human capital crowding out that we just reviewed, meaning that the investment is faster growth, but there would be a less room for human capital compound if we would do that in reality. And here's the some projections that were ran against the peer countries of Uzbekistan to compare if we would get to the same targets as they are. I won't go into details, but overall, both reform packages do not close the gap with peer countries, but they at least stop it from widening even further. With all that said, the main things to point out here is that the informality does quite well respond to the investment adjustments, even with only 5 interventions. Second, the investment trade-off against human capital and high reform brings 17% more GDP per capita, but it does it through capital accumulation. In terms of the education enrollment push, it only pays off if there's a formal labor market to absorb those graduates, which means that there's definitely a need for regulatory reforms that comes along with the educational investment. There's obviously more to dig into. We could adjust the fiscal sustainability, government variables, migration variables, and health, but to save up some time, I just picked these, and I would be very happy if you guys have any research suggestions or collaboration suggestions, and I'm happy to dig into more details with any further questions. Thank you very much.
Super graphics that again help highlight certain reform trajectories that might otherwise certainly not be understood or available to many observers of the scene in Uzbekistan. So thank you. Okay, we have time for a few questions. We want to end reasonably soon, but you can direct them to any of the speakers, all of the speakers, or depending on the topic. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
You can state your name and
All right.
affiliation.
Hello, thank you so much for your time, for organizing this, and thank you for the panel speakers. So my name is Gauhar, I'm from Uzbekistan as well. So the question is for Nodira Saidkarimova. Thank you for your presentation. That was very interesting, actually. All the data that you've collected, I fact-checked and everything. So my question is, how did you conduct the survey? That was interesting to me. And then the recommendation that you got from your survey, how did you, like, what did you base your recommendations on? Like, if you can say, like, how did you, where, in what region, what, you know, where did you do that? And was that, does the government support your survey? How did they do that? What agencies? So that's a question for you. Another question for, for Murodjon. So for you, the question you talked about elderly care programs. So that's traditionally in Uzbekistan that we know, you touched upon that, people are not willing to send their parents to, you know, caring homes and stuff. So how do you think this would change, and how long is it going to take, and what has been done so far? What recommendations have been offered from government, or, you know, from professionals like yourself? What has been done so far in Uzbekistan? And how about the funding, the government funding or private funding, or like international, you know, other countries, if there is the benefit? Whoa, so the question for
I want to allow enough time for other.
Okay, thank you then.
Yeah, thank you. Nodira? Answer first.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I suppose you mean the last few slides on ICMPD study. That study didn't include survey. It was fully the desk study plus deep interviews of key informant interviews. So the desk study included a study of the legislation, available reports of international organizations, as well as statistical data openly available. The second stage included key informant interviews of government agencies engaged into provision of these services, as you've seen. Also interviews with non-governmental organizations, those NGOs that work with labor migrants and vulnerable groups, and international organizations such as IOM, OSCE, and many others. Regarding the survey, that was due to resource constraints, budget and funding for this research. Of course, it would be great to include household survey, but we didn't have enough resources for that. That's why we used available surveys conducted by UNDP and IOM. These surveys also covered the needs and skills of returning migrants, and we basically focused on skills mismatch. UNDP study is quite comprehensive. It included almost 600 respondents from each region, distributed evenly among all regions of Uzbekistan. It was conducted in 2022. And also we used several studies of IOM. Some studies included specific migrants returning from specific countries, for example, from Sweden. And some studies were quite general, that we also used these studies as well as the part of the desk research. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
Just working, right? For elderly care, as I said, that the presentation was condensed. That's why maybe some words were not totally explained. Let's dive into it in details. We have 18,000 elderly people who are in need of immediate external care in Uzbekistan identified by the agency. And these people are not the total population, they are the ones in the social registry that we can target them with the government subsidies. We don't have an insurance system now, we only target with government subsidies these poor families. They are taking this, accepting this service because they have no choice. They have to go out and work and bring income. If they do not, they will become poor and drop into poverty. But here's the thing: we have even privatized the care system, care workers. Uzbekistan had more than 2,500 care workers. It was under the agency. We gave them to private companies. Okay, market is yours, work. And they are still working for our people in our register because when they went to the better of families offering their services, they said, I'm not going to pay for that. I used to do I'm going to take care of my father or my grandmother by myself. And first, secondly, I don't believe that person come and roam around in my house and touch my things, maybe steal some things. So they are just rejecting. That's the two main hindrance to universalizing the service in Uzbekistan. But we can solve the first issue by introducing the insurance system. When people understand that it is totally covered by the insurance or partially covered by the insurance, like in Japan or in Germany, they suddenly become open. Oh, okay, it's kind of almost free for me. Oh, it's good. And secondly, professionalization. Current care workers, especially after they went to the private sector, their quality actually dropped because it's about money. Extra training, retraining, it costs money. These private businesses, they just making up some documents and numbers and just sending their care workers to the houses. And our clients, who are being already poor and in social registers, they do not tend to complain, because if they complain, there will be service stopped for a while, and then problems with the registry, and etc., etc. Kind of privatizing, let's say, created a loophole of mistakes, actually, because it wasn't prepared. The pushers for this reform was not prepared, and was not, let's say, they didn't go with better needs assessment. That was the problem. And we actually, me and my team actually expressed this concern to the management. We know that, let the market a little bit work. They need to taste the money at least a little bit for 1 year or 2 years. Otherwise, if we start checking them or certifying them and giving more extra financial burden to these companies, they will just escape and stop their businesses. That's why. These two solutions are among many recommendations in my paper. It's in the original paper. That's why it's condensed. That's why it's invisible. I will welcome all of you to read our papers when we publish by the end of this May, and I hope you will find many answers to your many questions in that paper. Thank you.
I would like to make one small addition. Currently, we are conducting workshops for the government and NGOs to validate the results and present and validate recommendations as well. Before coming here, we have organized, before my visit here in April, we have organized such a workshop for national level authorities and NGOs, and next week we are having a similar workshop for the representatives from region to make sure we cover and validate results, not only at national level, but at regional levels as well.
Other questions?
My name is Dennis Holy. We do a television program called This is America in the World.
Thank you. This has been an exciting day with lots of input from terrific panelists. That whole area of the world, Central Asia, is just terrific. I've been to Uzbekistan a couple of times. And it's a time of transition and of growth. So I'm going to ask a kind of a simple question that's predicated on some of the issues that have been brought up today. Young people, employment, the elderly, the brain drain, women, the GDP for people nowadays. What's the mood of the average person in Uzbekistan today? How do they see the country and where it is and where it's going?
I would like to go back to one of the numbers that I mentioned, that I think it was 600,000 persons returning to Uzbekistan. I think that's important figure. So of course we don't have opportunity to understand the whole picture very well, but the statistics speaks for itself. So it seems people are quite enthusiastic with ongoing reforms and opportunities within the country. So of course, from the one side, these returns are dictated with some uncertainties in major destination country, geopolitical problems, especially in Russia, but also there are, I believe, there are some pull factors inside Uzbekistan as well, making people believe for some new emerging opportunities, especially with business. And we see, speaking about the mood, we see a lot of enthusiasm among people starting businesses, especially in new emerging spheres like IT startups, and today the ambassador also mentioned there's new opportunities with the British law being introduced within the IT park. So there are certain areas where we see really good enthusiasm of people within the sphere. Also among the youth, we see a lot of new private universities opening. If 10 years ago only 10% of young people finishing schools had opportunity to enroll with higher educational facilities. Now this figure went up to 25, creating more educational opportunities within the country. So on one hand, so I cannot say for the whole population, but it depends on the on the segment of population we are speaking. And of course there are some segments that still would say that of course women as well who still suffer domestic violence, who suffer stigma in social society. Today I talked with one of the women present here. She's a young woman living here, and I asked, what do your parents say? Are they requiring you to go back and get married? She said, of course they want, but I'm happy they are not pushing too much. So, yeah.
Let me add on that. She raised really good points. If you are looking for a good phrase for an article, the current mood is cautious optimism. Because we are still healing from the previous mistakes in the government since the independence for the first 25, 26 years, and many things were closed, and the economy was closed, policies was multi-vector, and then population and then the economic growth, life conditions were not the best. We were healing, and then as a this is what I like about our population. We are actually a hardworking population. Uzbekistan, people doesn't avoid work with this labor migration and then other work conditions. People are enduring still. Actually, the proof of that. And our behavior actually keeps us optimistic. The people are optimistic, but the wounds from the previous times keeps us cautious. Middle class is actually kind of more happier than before, because for the middle class, if you work with good skills, education, you are being rewarded actually. I am one of the examples. I am from a simple village. I came from the private sector society like Museum, and I ended up in a government job in high-ranking place because of my education and then good pitching and then some experience. But the lower class kind of partially already given up on some measures, and they are doing everything on their own. They, how to say, put it simply, they believe in themselves. There are actually really that certain category of people in Uzbekistan, and mostly many of them are religious people, and it's good. Everyone has a lifestyle, but overall mood is changed. It's improving because the economy, society, and politics is promising. But we are keeping ourselves in a cautious spectrum to be ready for everything.
I'd like to make a little addition here. I will be one of those people who will be returning home soon. I've been in the United States for like 3 years, but as you can see now around the world, we can see the internationalization. More countries, big countries that we know are closing up diplomatically, economically, so it's a good attraction method for Uzbekistan to get their youth back. And I would also mention the regional differences inside Uzbekistan, and all of the startups, majority of those startups, businesses, and new opportunities are in the capital city or in the bigger cities, yeah, those opportunities would be less noticeable in the far regions. That's it.
You have time for one more?
We have a question here.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, thank you. Again, I want to hear panel. In terms of the export of labor from Uzbekistan,
in terms of the out-migration from Uzbekistan, how is that organized? The word trafficking was mentioned in passing. People who don't know country X wouldn't have any idea how to do this. So who organizes that, and what are the consequences? In terms of coming to Uzbekistan, not the returning folks like the young woman here, but people from either another Central Asian country or from Western Europe. Would they come? What would induce them to come? And something you don't have to answer, but there was the Soviet Union. Ideologically, women should have an equal place. Once upon a time that was talked about. Did that make any difference whatsoever? Did the ideology still exist, or it was just forgotten?
anyone?
Yeah, the first question on how out-migration is organized. Still, most of the migrants are going through irregular routes by their own, using the available diaspora channels. So I would assess like 90%, because the numbers are really huge. More than 1 million migrants are currently working abroad, and the government is currently not capable to cover them with regular migration opportunities because of many difficulties that I also mentioned today. So if 90% goes through irregular channels, they use available contacts there. That's why we still see a lot of people going to Russia because of available channels there, Kazakhstan because of the closeness, and it's easy to go there from many regions of Uzbekistan. Regarding on government side, how it is organized, the government has these organized recruitment schemes, so-called, which means the government bodies, it used to be fully in the hands of the government, where the government signed the labor recruitment contracts directly with the agencies, recruiters in destination countries, large recruiters. Now the government is shifting all these activities, all these contracts to private recruitment agencies. Nowadays there are more than 50 private recruitment agencies operating in Uzbekistan. And even when, but still the government promotes such contracts through embassies, through these agents on migration. And after signing such bilateral agreements, they approach to private recruitment agencies to organize it at operational level. That's how it's organized nowadays.
Can I share a small addition on that? Yes, it is promoted by the government that young people can go to formal labor work abroad, but there is an issue which we felt actually the negative effect in the social protection system. I want to tell you that maybe in many countries, governments, this is happening. We have this kind of phrase scramble for budget allocation annual. Probably every country has it among the ministries and agencies. And this scramble, this competition moves them to set ambitious goals and ask for more budget. So in 2024 or 2023, please correct me if I'm mistaken, Cabinet of Ministers signed a resolution and decree on sending 200,000 people only for 1 year to different countries. And as we've seen in the results, only it's 123. So they didn't reach the target. But nobody is questioning it right now because monitoring is weak, and it's already like 2 years ago resolution decree. Everyone forgot because we have like more than 100 and 120 degrees and resolutions every year. We are doing everything reactionary, ad hoc, on the time. We are not setting like 10 or 20 years goals. In this resolution, they didn't mention that after 10 years, how many people we are going to send, or how many people we are going to retake to the back to the local labor market. They didn't mention about that. They just want to get the budget and work on it, then improvise, maybe something good happens. This actually, this recurring problem happens a lot in the Uzbek government and many other Central Asian governments because there is an award for immediate spikes in numbers in the results. This is our, I would say, pros and cons. Pros is good for a developing country, good. Everyone is motivated, we are working, we are showing work, we are actually stepping one step ahead, but the cons part is you do not recognize or you do not discover that at some points we are stepping 2 steps back, one step ahead. That's the issue, and then the government should fix that, and then have a unified approach on everything, especially in the labor market. It should be connected to the education and the social protection system and the overall migration program. Thank you.
And one addition, you mentioned human trafficking, so yeah, it still happens, and the trends are changing. If a couple of years ago only it was mainly recruitment in the territory of Uzbekistan and transportation and exploitation abroad. Now all the recruitment happens online. Moreover, the exploitation is also going online through cyber scams. We see growing number of Central Asian citizens being recruited online and trafficked to Myanmar, to Cambodia, to Nepal, and being exploited as cyber scamming camps and targeting US citizens as well. This is very emerging and big and alarming problem because in these countries even the police cannot intervene to these highly dangerous criminal groups. They make millions of dollars and they are very aggressive, and to my knowledge they have not let any person go without paying for each person. It can cost starting with $10,000 to let one person go. Police don't do anything. It's just families pay for them. It's like pirates just kidnapping people. And yeah, and another issue is also quite close. It's not human trafficking, of course, but it's illegal migrant smuggling, which is happening from mostly Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan to the United States, and illegal border crossing through southern border of the United States through Mexico, and people are going very dangerous ways using services of these dangerous criminal groups, paying starting the payment that the people are ready to pay for this dangerous route starts with $40,000. So this is not super poor segment of the population. It's usually someone who has some small business, and it's a huge amount of money to pay to go to the United States. But a good thing is that the Uzbek government is working very efficiently with the United States to get these people back to Uzbekistan. Up to date, 700 citizens have been deported in partner action of Uzbek and the U.S. government. And as part of my work, we also worked on the prevention of this illegal actions and organized some discussion platform between Uzbekistan and the United States, both governments engaging diasporas as well.
Thank you very much. Really admirable focus on multidisciplinary policy-relevant research, and one will hope that Uzbek government and others will be able to grapple with this interdisciplinary challenge and coordination challenge and have longer time horizons. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's just straight in front of us.
Yes. Can I sign?